Hello everybody. Today I'd like to talk about the creative process for the Dragon Warrior Spirit. Now as you see, I'm just a fat old black belt. And even though I'm probably in the worst shape of my life, I've also reached a point where I have more power than I've ever had. I've become more powerful than I've ever been before. Now, what I have on today is a black belt. It was got for me when I went over to this Taekwondo school for the trial class. So I got my second degree black belt with the American Taekwondo Association. And so I was really happy that he got me one that fit because all my other black belts are only this long. And so so this is kind of nice to have, it's something for me to hang on to, and swing around. But anyways, I like to train in my t-shirt and jeans, and also a flannel jacket is a lot like a gi top, because hear how that snaps? And then on kicking, similarly, get good snap and power. You can hear it in your jeans. So I've also got on my sneakers, so I train barefoot in my socks. I don't like to train in my sandals, but I guess if you get in a real fight, you should take your sandals off. I wear flip-flops. Or like dress in something you're going to wear, to train at home. So something I like to share about is my kick bag outside. It's just an ugly old sun-beaten, should go to the trash, but that is something that you can kick in your shoes and you can hit with sticks. So I didn't want to go outside today. I just really wanted to have more a discussion on a type of creative process that I've been learning through the martial arts. Now, I didn't take any notes because I've been kind of thinking about this a while, so I was really kind of hoping I could deal this out in a way that I cover all my points and make it all fluid and connect. Okay, so anyways, oh boy, I'm sweaty and itchy. I had the doors open, the fans on, but I still want my jacket on because in case I do any demonstration, I like it because it's like my karate gi. So I call it my backwoods karate gi. And so this is the exact same thing I would probably wear to go on a hiking trail. And when I go hiking, I take this with me, so I just use this to go hiking. I don't wear my black belt out in public, that's kind of gay, so I mean that in a silly way, but I put a rubber tip on the end, so it's just my hiking staff, but when I get someplace to practice, then I do all my, so there's danda yoga, that means you can do yoga with your staff, like this, or I could just take it and spin it and use it to do all my exercise, so it's also an all-in-one gym, so anyways, I'm going to take this off. I just thought it'd be fun to wear this for the point of saying this is what my karate gi looks like when I'm training in my backyard. Now, a good reason to wear those belts is it helps you to bring attention to your center. So you kind of have like 3 centers, and so when you put that belt on, the area around your waist, kind of just below your belly button, is technically the center of your body, and if I could lift you up like this, I could balance you at that point if you didn't fall off. So anyways, the creative process runs parallel to the process of universal creation. And so in some of my last videos, I've talked about the 5-element Xingyi and how it comes into my martial arts training. And so what Xingyi comes from, as well as Tai Chi and Bagua, they come from Taoism. And what Taoism is to do with, in my, the way I would define what Taoist is about, is universal mastery and universal truth. So it's a process of understanding universal truth in order to attain universal mastery. So it's not going to happen all at once, but it's a path of mastery with a pretty long stretch goal, so to speak. So I've done some other videos about universal creation and the three components of the universe, and those are in my playlist for the Jodi Vision. But I think I'm going to include this one to my playlist for both the Jodi Vision and the Fat Old Black Belt. Maybe it goes to both sides, because to one extent we're going to talk about my martial arts training, because instead of going to college or going to art school or getting in the music business, I went to martial arts training, and I got my black belt in Taekwondo, which is more like a it's more like commercial music is. So martial arts to music is kind of like they would say McDojo. It's like going out to McDonald's, but like I think going on to like the Kempo and going on to the Kung Fu. Going to Kempo, it's kind of like going to maybe it's like going from, you know, commercial music to maybe like underground music next. So maybe going to Kempo is kind of like, you know, it's more for the street, so it's more underground, like it's kind of like maybe more like rock and roll. So but then going to Shaolin Kung Fu, it's like going to classical music. So Shaolin Kung Fu is the classical martial arts. And so the thing about making a connection with a really ancient art is it ties you into a traditional lineage that goes back for more than 1,000 years, you know. So what happens there, you know, for example, joining the Shaolin school, you benefit from being part of the morphogenic field of intention. So by going through all the moves and learning all the forms, it helps you tune into like the psyche or the spirit of the art. And so not only do you have unity with the people who are presently involved at your gym or your school, but it also ties you into all the ancestors, you know, where they reincarnated or went someplace else. The masters of Shaolin always kind of reconnect with us in the spirit world. And so something similarly can happen in other ways, you know, with other groups of people. And I think this is what's happening in music as well. So in music, what was happening is we're having a similar type of ceremony that has some degree of lineage, and what it does is it ties us in to a morphogenic field of intention. And now spiritual groups, of course, also have this type of thing. So when I went to visit the Lakota people, a lot of times they expect to be accompanied by their ancestors. The people that were spiritual masters and such would come and visit us during the ceremony. They would know that somebody like Sitting Bull was there, you know, somebody like, so it's a big deal, like if you go to Sweat Lodge, you know, and somebody's like, oh, his crazy horse. Now I gotta shut the door. Oh my goodness. So I picked a bad time to make a video, but I'm gonna see if I can do it anyways. If I can't hear my voice over the lawnmower after we're done, I'll just delete it and do another one. So anyways, with that, since then I've come to Montana and joined Straight Blast Gym, and that teaches Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, kickboxing, and you also get yoga, weight training, and basically what do you call physical training of all kinds. So I took all of that, you know. And so that's kind of like, to me, like learning techno-industrial, kind of taking things to the modern. So, you know, it may have a lineage that comes from other things like the traditional arts to some extent, and then, but it's pretty much modernistic, and no one's expected to look that way anymore, that type of thing. So that's where I like to kind of like compare the two areas of interest of mine, I should say, that are music and martial arts. Is I feel like that instead of going to art school and music school and all this stuff, what I did was I went to martial arts, and I feel like, man, I wasted all my time there, because I can't really, you know, open a school and teach and make a living anymore, you know. So I guess I could, but I just feel like it hasn't worked out for me, and now I'm just like, I should have paid attention to music instead. And so maybe there's such a thing as, you know, karma and timing, and, you know, everything's happening on time and all that. But point being is, I feel like what I'm learning from martial arts helps me to understand what I need to do for everything else. It's like, it's universal mastery. That's the key ingredient. So that's why, you know, I see the overall picture. Okay, so the process of creation, I've explained this in other videos, is There are three components of the universe, and how we get there is by natural law. So if you look at the yin and yang symbol as one big thing, it kind of represents your zero and your one, because zero is the emptiness and one represents a one whole unit. So you might have the circle for the one whole unit, and then when you divide it, then we bring it into duality. So this is what we experience here at Earth, this experience in duality. And then within the so you have like fullness and emptiness. Well, the fullness aspect would be what you call the living universe, because there's the living universe and there's the void, and they act on each other. So it's almost like you have life force energy and then just emptiness, and they act on each other. But within the structure of the living universe are the three main ingredients, and it is energy, frequency, and vibration. And this is the Holy Trinity. These are the three aspects. So what's happening, so for whatever reason, there's this quantum energetic field, and it's being acted upon by conscious presence, which is the frequency. So the frequency is acting upon what we call the Holy Spirit, right? So you got this frequency and the Holy Spirit, and next thing you know, you got vibration, and you got the neighbors banging on the wall, hey guys, settle down. Okay, so, and that's what brings the building block of all physical reality is vibration. So we know through science, through scientific study, and it's been proven that the building block of the subatomic particle is vibration. And they've done a lot of experiments to show how conscious presence can, say, act on water, and what kind of crystals will form and stuff like that. Like you may introduce a pile of sand to some sound vibration, and it makes a pattern. So we know that we need frequency and energy to get vibration. And so this is what the Christian teaching is pretty much talking about, but in a really nice, poetic, crazy kind of what you call theological or mythological kind of way. And so that's all it is. And so within each of us, to have a complete living system, you need to have conscious presence, which you experience in your head. And the Holy Spirit is something you experience in your heart. This is where spirituality pertains to, but then the physical center of your body might correspond to the thirdly, the vibration and the manifest. So your body's like the manifestation of so the universal frequency or conscious presence is like your head going, I want to do this, I want to do that. Every time we think shit up, what we did is we set energy in motion. Okay, and so what's happening is you get an idea, and depending on how much you care about that idea, and depending on how physically possible that idea is all going to determine the likelihood of that idea to manifest. Okay, so it's like that. So no matter what you do, you might say, I think I could use a hot cup of coffee right now, and then I might say, what, on second thought, I could use a big swig of this water. So you can change your mind. So it's kind of a little bit like that that thing, The Secret. Now, here's the funny thing. Okay, so here's you have the three aspects. We have a three-part brain, and it's the animal brain, or they call the reptile brain, and the limbic brain. It's the secondary brain, and then the lastly, but not least, the neocortex. That's what makes us able to be big thinkers. Okay, so so now when we look at the history of the Earth and the life on it, okay, so the term we have is organism. So all biological life absolutely depends on conscious presence. So like, where do we get our DNA? It is set out through the frequencies of the universe, and it comes through from the universal center, through the galactic center, through the sun, and into the earth. So, and sometimes, pulses come out, so it's not just a steady flow. There could be pulses, there could be all this different kind of space weather that has affected the nature of our DNA. So our DNA comes from a universal pattern. So if we could space travel, we'll probably find other planets that are physical like Earth, that are at the atomic level, are going to have plants and animals and very similar life forms, and probably all of them will produce a neocortex bearing animal that constitutes as the human being of their planet. So it's sort of like the idea of evolution is somewhat incorrect, that what's happening has been a process of unfoldment on our planet, And it's been a process of bringing about a neocortex bearing animal in order to manifest this three-part brain and able to manifest this three-part system. So we're a living system. So if you're an organism, it's because you're organized. You have all these organized parts. So people, they think it's all chaos. Well, actually, yes. So in outer space or out in nature is chaos, but what brings about organization is what you call the frequency and vibration, and that means what's putting out all these codes that create DNA and patterned the world. So the evolutionary aspect is more to do with how life emerges on Earth. And so that's where if you go from planet to planet, it's all going to be different. That's going to be evolution, and what evolution is changing and adapting to the environment, or, you know, the way we grow is according to the environment. So the forces in nature that are not of conscious presence are fighting back, and so that's why everything needs to take a good structure, and that has to have integrity. Everything needs to be circular, spherical, and tubular. And that's why the circle represents like the circle of heaven, you know, the circle of life, because it needs to be connected. And if you break that circle, you're going to let all the air out, you know. So anyways, what happened with the animal kingdom is first we had the king of the earth would be the reptile. So the height of cold-blooded animals is where we get our basic brain, from those particular type of vertebrates. And then as life continued to unfold, then we end up with warm-blooded reptiles, and then warm-blooded amphibians. And when we became warm-blooded, then we also come along with the secondary brain, the limbic brain. But then it went on further until we had human, and then that's when you have the neocortex. Now, what can happen to those of us who have a neocortex is we end up living in our head, and we get stuck in our head, and we forget that you're even an animal, and you also neglect your spiritual needs like that. So our state of evolution has been from the ground up, that you are fundamentally an animal, and then when we became a warm-blooded animal, we developed the secondary part of our brain that made us more of a warm-hearted animal. So that's why you notice all your warm-blooded fuzzy friends, they care, they have a lot of emotional expression and things like this, and they love you and care about you, and you know it. Okay, so now other animals have all three components. Like, you know, even if we go back to reptiles or anything less, they still have the three components of biological life. You know, in order to have a living system, you need to have the conscious presence, there needs to be an energetic body, and there needs to be an avatar. So all of these things have an embodiment, they all have energy to them, and so they may experience some degree of love and joy, they may experience some degree of conscious awareness and ability to think. But when you have the limbic brain, it helps to facilitate that aspect more. And then if you have the neocortex in the brain, that's what absolutely facilitates human life as it stands. Okay, so you go up, 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 but here's what happens when you go to martial arts training. Okay, so we start up here. The first thing we're going to learn is the science of the art, that how to make a proper fist, how to move and extend and turning your body, and how to make it so that mass times acceleration is going to equal force. So we learned the science. Or like we might say about somebody who's learning jujitsu. Like, so I was listening to one of the younger Gracies who teach out in California. They brought in this really big, strong football player who's got his blue belt, and so he was showing the video how they're doing some good rounds of jujitsu, and he's saying, as a compliment, you know, this guy, he might be big and strong, but his jujitsu is very cerebral. So what we want to do to start out as a martial artist is we want to learn to be very cerebral, meaning that we are using our ability to think and use the science and use the proper technique, you know, using your head before you just start going crazy and acting like an animal. Okay, so you want to be very cerebral. So that way this person, he's not just pushing his partner around, he could probably just smash him, right? Instead, he's using techniques instead of brute force, right? So you want to be very cerebral. Now, I think it's kind of inevitable, but it's not so much talked about in mixed martial arts or many other arts, and that's where Shaolin takes things a little bit deeper, because we incorporate the Taoism into our training. So it's both Vedic and Taoist. So like the main temple was Vedic. You know, the people that like for example Bodhidharma came to the temple, they named him Dhammo. And so this is somebody with a Vedic background that came, and he was a major inspirer for the Shaolin Temple, and then he went to Japan, and that's where you get the term Zen Buddhism. Okay, but the other side of Kung Fu, super important, was coming from the Taoism, which is, I believe, is something that has developed inside China. So it's kind of like their own brand, you know, of philosophy, and so super important stuff. And then along with that, the animals. So we talk about animal training, which sounds kind of fun because you kind of try to pretend you're an animal a little bit when you do them. So when you're new, first thing we're going to learn is like the long fist kung fu, which just teaches you how to move like this, how to get snap and power, you know, how to do those deep long. So it's almost like doing yoga with martial arts mixed together. So you learn to make your body, you develop fortitude through these long, low stances, you know, so that's what gives us really what they call springy legs. You want to have springy legs, so when you just in a regular fighting stance, you can move around easily. So you learn just the mechanical and the cerebral, but as soon as we get our yellow belt, the first thing we get is tiger and bird. And I believe that this is the spiritual, when you're starting to come down from being cerebral and being more to the limbic. So this helps you tap into your limbic center when you start to act like a tiger and you start to act like a bird, you know. So what tiger's going to teach you to do, you're going to form tiger claws, and you're going to muster up some tiger energy, and then you're going to step back and be like, you don't have to yell it, but it's just like, rah, you got that animal spirit. That's like, you know for sure you don't want to go out in nature and pet the animals. Like you're like, oh, isn't that a cute little bobcat, or oh, what a cute little badger, or how about these people at Yellowstone, like they want to pet the bison, right? You know, and sometimes the most unsuspecting animals are the ones that are either smaller or ones that are just really docile, but once they go, "Ugh!" It's over. You won't even know what happened to you. And none of these animals go to Kung Fu. It's just built into us. So that's when we start going down from being cerebral to start moving into ourself, part of ourself that is instinct. So the limbic helps facilitate more to the instinct. Okay, so that's where when you're perhaps in music and other arts, like you can't have heart without a art, right? And so heart and art, they kind of match, they rhyme, and it's a good thing because they kind of need each other, you know. So to make music great, you want to have both intellect and you want to have a lot of heart. And so, you know, the Native American counterparts of ours are telling us, you know, white man, you're living too much in your head and not enough in your heart. So you really want to make sure that all of this is activated. So you want to activate this part of yourself so that you're intellectual, you're using your head and expanding awareness and consciousness, so you're not a dummy. Okay, and then also need to expand here. So this is what's going to make you go from being just intellectual to being intelligence. When these two come together, then you also have wisdom and compassion to match all of this science up here, so that way you're not out here just making bombs and things. I would rather see, you know, science combined with spirituality. Then you're not going to want to design those things. You're going to instead design things that make the world safer and more healthy, right? So at any rate, the funny thing about martial arts is that we go from the warm-blooded, the more seemingly complex and evolved animals, to the less evolved animals as we evolve onto snake and dragon. So we get to evolve from, we're going to go through cat and bird and monkey and let's see, so the 5 animals are actually tiger, crane, leopard, but then you evolve through dragon and snake, and so that's one pattern, but there's a lot of other different animals that we evolve through. So some of the higher animals would actually be praying mantis, which is just an insect. So it's kind of wild that we evolve, you know. So when you go from just kung fu, then it's like you're just a person. Then we go down to the deeper kung fu, which are the animals, But then we go on to the deeper kung fu, which brings us to snake and dragon. And the deeper we go, we get down to drunken style, we get down to mana style. And so, so I don't know a lot of mana style, but I like to say, I know how to fight, and I can play the keyboard. So that's what mana style looks like, somebody that plays the synthesizer. At any rate, so we're gonna evolve backwards through being just a really smart scientific human to be a fighting warm-blooded animal. Now we're going to go to the fighting cold-blooded animals, which only have the animal brain. So what it's teaching us to do is we're going to activate and tap into all three of these centers. So for Kung Fu, what it's helping us to do, and probably something we should start out sooner, so like in, they call the Kisi method. So somebody from Spain developed this system called the Kisi method, and you see them fight like this all the time, and they move around like this, and and so what he's teaching his newbies is to activate the predator. You've got to activate the predator inside of us for the sake of fighting. So when we start into tapping into the dragon and the reptile side of us, this is what's helping us to tap into the predator. And so I kind of had the realization that some of the music I listen to, so there's music for every reason. Like, there's so much music about, fun and party and romance, and some of the music I listen to I think is for the fighting spirit and for the dragon spirit inside of you. And so that's where I list, a lot of the industrial music I listen to, so so the people in the background here, this is dragon spirit. So like when you're singing like this, just sing it like that. And heavy metal music and industrial music and any music where the singer is singing like a dragon. So this person could be just what you call tapping in to their predator self, so their predator component, so to be complete, so to be well-rounded in your martial arts training, you need to be able to activate all these three basic components, and this all ties together with what are the three components of the universe, and it all ties in with how universal creation unfolds. And so you don't really need to know all this stuff, but it's just something that is a good creative process. So like, so I don't know, like if I could say every musician or artist needs to do this, but if you're a musician or artist who also does martial arts like I do, that's where you could benefit, from your understanding from one art to the other. So in my case, I feel like I've always been straddling, wanting to do martial arts or wanting to do the music thing, and so it's kind of fun to think that for me there's been kind of a crossover, because some of my favorite bands, I kind of think of them as being, I call it military industrial techno, because actually we strongly dislike the military industrial complex, but and it's actually an anti-war movement. It's part of, it's part of, I like to think it's just like one, leg of the, what you call, the Cultural Revolution. And, it goes back to the hippies, the beatniks, all this. So so some of the music we listen to, you're just like, why do you listen to that crazy music? So not all music is made for just entertainment, to play at your party. I mean, I think some of the music I've been listening to in my life goes really deep, and so it's not about, all this typical stuff from the radio. It's like, it's about coming face to face, and a lot of times, facing a dark time. So it's like something that's always been put in front of us, like we got World War III is like the sword of Damocles hanging above our head, so we've been living in a super peaceful time for those of us who are here in the States and Canada and maybe other parts of the world, but other places are practically experiencing Armageddon where they live, so it's kind of like it's right here. It's like, what are you going to do when your life is this way? And so you may actually have to learn how to, what you call, tap into that warrior dragon spirit to get through, say, if it's a wartime, in your land, or maybe just your own personal challenges. There's a lot to be said about things that are psychologically challenging to us. And so like a lot of us that have problems in the white man's world, me and my friend were just laughing the other day, we should be very thankful that the problems we have are just white people's problems, because it's like we have everything we need over here, and so the stuff we're complaining about isn't really that big a deal. Maybe we just, like I might be complaining because I didn't like something that happened at work, or I just don't like, something that happened in the music scene and things like this. But otherwise, I guess I should say that I'm very fortunate for a minute. But I really wanted to talk a little bit about the education I get from martial arts, at least on the intellectual level, and at other times maybe I would like to show more. So I don't really practice as much as I used to, but I feel like it's kind of fun to like get up and work on a little bit, and it's something I hope to go back to eventually. But since I left Denver, I quit training on a regular basis, and it's been really hard to get back in shape. And right now I've been saving all my energy just to get through work. I feel like it's all I could do to complete my work week without adding any more exhaustion. So I feel like, right now is not a good time for me to be in class, and right now is not a good time for me to start an exercise routine other than maybe going lightly. Like, so I've been thinking I'm going to start out maybe a little lightly, go swimming, go hiking, but I'm not going to go sign up with a class, because I tried the 2-week thing at the Taekwondo class and it made me realize I tend to try to keep cadence with everybody else, so I need to go on to do my own training. Okay, you guys, let's see here. I want to make sure I've covered all my points. When we look at universal creation, you need 3 basic ingredients to have a living system, and it's interesting how you can see that in every living organism. We all have a mind. We all have, obviously there needs to be spirit energy, or you wouldn't be warm or able to live, and then you need an avatar. So every living thing seems to have a body. And so when you break down the history of animals, you have and the brain, the unfoldment of animal life and the brain, you have the reptile brain, you have the limbic brain, and the neocortex. And then they seem to correspond to the Holy Trinity, right? The whole frequency plus energy equals vibration. So it's kind of like the 3 components of the universe, they exist separately and simultaneously at the same time, and that's exactly what they're trying to say about the Holy Trinity. It's sort of like 3 separate components that exist simultaneously, because you need all 3 to be a Jodi or whatever you are. But at the same time, physicality is just a component you see everywhere. So there's a lot of stuff here like the walls and things that are just not animate, so they're just the physicality, they're the framework. And then conscious presence is like a component in the universe. It just kind of goes everywhere. That's what they're talking about, what God is. It's everywhere. It's the conscious present is where all the like codes and stuff come from, and so to make DNA and life take shape. So, and then energy, they say there's one great spirit and it moves through all things. That is the component of spirit, the component that is energy, and how they exist separately. So, and then the third aspect is how, although we develop from bottom to top, so here's the thing, sometimes we get up here and it's like you don't want to drop the bottom, so that's why we don't want to lose history. We need to know a little, as much, at least a basic idea of what human history has been. We need a basic idea of what Earth history has been, even if we don't remember all the dates and names. Kind of like you need to know about the Cultural Revolution and the anarchy movement, at least at a basic level, even if you don't know who all the rock stars were at the time, okay? So that's also the thing about trying to remember history of humanity, remember your own personal history, because it's like, only using the neocortex in the brain and letting all of the other centers shut down. So you still need to have the animal center, you still need to have the limbic center, and all 3 parts going together. So when you learn history, it develops a longer now. So the further back we could see to the past, the further forward we could see into the future. It creates a longer now. So you're not just here in the now going like this, I don't see the future or the past, ha! No, you want to see the far back as you can, and the way you will see the far as into the future as you can, like this. And then the backwards development of Shaolin Kung Fu, which is kind of ironic. So all martial arts should get you to be cerebral, and the ones that are more to the mystical end. So that's where Shaolin is a little bit more mystical rather, and not just all science. So that's when we're going on to like, we're going to activate the limbic center through tiger style, and Later on, we're going to activate more of the animal center through the insects and through the dragon paw. So, at any rate, this has been kind of a way of looking at the three components of your unfoldment as an animal, but then the three components of unfoldment as an artist or as a martial artist, or maybe as a warrior musician who is industrial strength, for example. All right, you guys, have a nice day, and this is the Shaolin Salute, you guys. This is power covered by wisdom.